Hello guys, my name is Amit Sani and I welcome you to StudyIQ in the daily Hindu editorial analysis videos. These videos they come in Hindi and English both in the morning and in the evening. The PIB videos both in Hindi and English they come. So today is 19th January and let's start with today's lesson. And the motivating quote for you people is the most important one, that trouble is you think you have time. Buddha said, and Buddha was one of the most practical person in the world. He said, you think you have time. When time is good, the time runs very, very fast. You don't feel that time is there. And when time is giving you some kind of trouble, it's not a good phase, it's a negative phase, then certainly you will feel every second passing by. So that's the issue with the time. And if you want to accomplish big things and anywhere in the process you feel that you have time, then you are wrong. You never have time. Consistently do your work with your patience and your energy. Thanks a lot. So today's article is having some words here, so these are vocabs, search for them. And if I talk about today's articles, there are 4 articles, all are important, so we are going to discuss them thoroughly, all of them. This is important for GS paper 2. It's about the Lokpal bill and Lokpal act and the search committee regarding that. And next is regarding the China's economy, that is going towards a slowdown. So GS paper 3 would be relevant here. And this is the issue regarding the sedition charges on Mr. Kanhaiya and the Umar Khalid and all. So it is a fact-based article and it is giving us insight into the university's conditions and what should be the proper way, what should be the standard. So GS paper 1, 2 and 4 case studies can be there, and essay paper. For all of them, this article is important. And this danger of reciprocity, the article is based on this word reciprocity, and it's a dangerous word in the judiciary. And for the democracy also, it's a greatly compromising word and very much a manipulative thing. So this is article regarding GS paper 2 very importantly, and maybe GS paper 4 also, because the issue of integrity and compromise is there. So that's why it's important for both of them. So we are going to discuss all of them. Now, nudged into action on the Lokpal Act. You see, Lokpal Act, it came in 2013 and the president's assent it got in 1st of January 2014. Okay, so it's 4-5 years back. It should have never come to this on Lokpal, that Supreme Court is now releasing an order that you people are not serious about it. Whatever discourses, whatever rhetorics you made before coming to power, nothing is being done here, and Lokpal is hanging till now. An 8-member search committee under Lokpal Act, it was to recommend a panel of names before the end of the February. Now this direction is given by Supreme Court that anyhow give these names before end of February. This is high time now, and 4-5 years are gone, and many of your excuses are over now, and it is crossing all limits. Okay, this shortlist has to be sent to the selection committee. When they will be giving these names, and this 8-member search committee will be finalizing some names, those will be sent to a selection committee, where in this selection committee Prime Minister would be the chairman. Okay, and other people would be there, leader of opposition, CGI and other people. We will talk about them. Giving a background of this particular article, the writer is saying that it has taken 5 years, and this Lokpal Act came in 14, and now search committee had to begin its work, but now it's not started yet. And you see, now in September last year, when an NGO filed a contempt petition against the government, that government is involved in some kind of a contempt of Supreme Court's order of April 17, where they had to give these names and establish this search committee. Should have given these names till now, but the government is giving this argument that search committee requires some groundwork. Composition should be drawn from diverse fields such as anti-corruption policy, public administration, law, banking, insurance. People from all these grounds, they will have to come into this search committee so that they can select good names. Okay, so that's the condition. And next argument government is saying that half of the membership should be from the section of women, backward classes, minority, and the SC/ST candidates. So it's not a simple thing, and it's a logical thing to say that it's not a one-day task or 1 month, 5 months task to establish this search committee, because a lot needs to be done before they start working. But you see, government is saying that Supreme Court is saying that it's government's duty to expedite this process, what you are there for, and it does not take 4 or 5 years. It is not that much time that was needed. You have taken more than 4 or 5 years, and still the search committee is hanging. Leave about the rest, leave about the selection committee and all, and working of the Lokpal. Even search committee is not established. And apart from that, this the search committee has been handicapped. Why? Because these people, they have not provided it any office space, no manpower, no infrastructure, and no secretariat. So how it can work? They are not providing any kind of infrastructure. That means they don't want it to start. And in the past too, government is allegedly involved in making a delay in creating these institutions like CIC, CVC, or this Lokpal. So that shows that political will is totally missing, and they don't want to start these things, and they don't want their working to be smooth, because these are going to scrutinize the government's working only. That's the problem. April 17 verdict of Supreme Court said that government was awaiting the passage based on parliamentary committee report. This argument was given by government in the court, in Supreme Court, in April 17. They said that we are waiting for a parliamentary committee report, and that is not done, and that's why we are not able to proceed further. But you see, we saw in the case of this reservation quota bill, where the draft was not sent to any kind of committee, and that was under huge criticism. So it's a totally a selective thing, that in one case they don't want parliamentary committees, and in one case they are saying that we are waiting for the parliamentary committee amendments and recommendations. Okay, so that's a problematic thing. And here the court says that you are very smart, you don't want committees in some case, and you want committees in those cases where you want to delay things. Okay, so in this search committee, in the selection committee, the people, who would be the people? Prime Minister would be the chairperson, and Lok Sabha Speaker would be there, and Leader of Opposition would be there, and Chief Justice of India and an eminent jurist would be there. So these 5 people are going to be there in the selection committee. Now see, the big problem here. The big problem is the Leader of Opposition. We saw in the case of Alok Verma, where and in the selection of CIC and all, there also they said that please do away with the condition where Leader of Opposition, his attendance is a requirement. It's a mandatory condition that he should be present. We don't want this condition to be there, because it's delaying our process and we are not able to work smoothly. Government gave this argument in the case of Alok Verma case. So there they did not want Leader of Opposition to be there, and Leader of Opposition, it did not create any problem there. It was a minor issue at that time. But in this case they are saying that Leader of Opposition is not there, and it is not decided by Speaker, because the rule is Speaker, Lok Sabha Speaker would decide about who would be the Leader of Opposition. And normally the largest opposition party's leader is the Leader of Opposition. That's a simple idea, simple logic. But here Speaker has to decide about it, and Speaker, Lok Sabha Speaker, is from the ruling party in India. That's the thing. So how it would be smooth? Because the same person is from a ruling party, and the same ruling party, the Speaker is from the ruling party, and the ruling party does not want the Leader of Opposition to be decided, so that this process can be delayed. So that's a mockery here. Okay, so they are saying that Mr. Mallikarjun Kharge, who is now Leader of Opposition, he is raising objection here that I am being invited as a special representative here. I am not being treated as a member of this particular committee. So why I would be coming here? I don't have any importance here, and my opinion does not matter here. So that's the problem. And government has not made him a full member. It was his grievance. Now the government sticks to its view that he has not been recognized as the Leader of Opposition by the Speaker. So government is saying this, that he has not been hailed as a Leader of Opposition by Speaker. What we can do? So that's very smart. Now, court is saying that these minor issues has been resolved in respect of appointments to other posts like CBI director, CVC. It did not create any kind of problem, and nothing except the lack of political will to establish the Lokpal can explain years of delay. That's the real issue, that actually the political will is missing. And whatever talks you can make, whatever rhetorics you can make, that we will do all these things, we will remove the corruption from India scenario, and all black money will be bringing here, and there will be no corruption in the government or in the administration. These all are hollow claims, because the machinery, the particular tool that was devised for this particular corruption issue, you are not working on that, and you are not supporting that particular practical idea which was about to deal with this corruption issue. That's the issue. Next article is regarding China's economy. China's economy on a slowdown. Its exports for December fell by 4.4%, and trade tensions are going on with US. Even though the conditions are like that their trade surplus with US is $3 billion. Okay, and highest since 2016. But the concerns are going on, the trade wars are going on. Why? Because the Chinese economy is on a decline, and car sales in 2018 dropped for the first time since 1990. It never happened after 1990 that their sales declined. They always rose, but now they are also shifting their growth target to 6% from 6.5%, and markets across the world have naturally been worried about the fate of Chinese economy, because you see what happened in the Chinese economy. Chinese economy, totally its growth was led by the cheap exports. Okay, and these cheap exports were supported by the cheap credit, and this cheap credit was available. So that's why the real estate sector also improved, and it made growth in leaps and bounds. And this export area and the manufacturing area, that also did a recorded growth, and that's why China had to start this Belt and Road Initiative, so that it can find markets and its manufactured items, they can be sold out. So that was the necessity for China to create this Belt and Road Initiative. But it was all dependent on the cheap credit policy of China, and the devaluation they also did with the currency of China, that also helped their exports, and it dumped all steels and other products into other countries, and it distorted the world trade. But now the stock markets in China, they are one of the worst performing today, and slowdown in the sales of these big companies are also going on, Apple, Jaguar, Land Rover. So the issue is very negative regarding China, and now People's Bank of China has to inject cash worth yuan $83 billion to boost bank lending. So that's also in peril, and transition from its earlier growth model led by cheap exports and huge capital investment, now that is shifting towards a domestic consumption led economy. Now more domestic consumption is happening in China. First it was only greatly an export idea and the capital investment that was needed for this export and the manufacturing. Now it is going towards a consumption led economy. So big transition is going on in China, and in this phase they are also trying to wean the economy of cheap debt. Means they are no more in a kind of situation where they would appreciate the cheap debt and cheap credit policy. They want to take it away so that the situation can be managed, and even that cheap debt is also not feasible for China today, because the banks, their lending capacity is not much today. So that's the problem with China. And in all these scenarios, you see world trade is also in a great confusion, and the equation between US and China, it always affects the world trade, and especially India. India is a major partner, US is also a major partner for China, and whatever is happening in China, that should be a cause of concern for both of us. So that's the problem. And now aftermath of 2008 global financial crisis, they have now totally opened the credit taps. They are bound to open these credit taps for all the manufacturers and for all economy, because real estate is also going very bad when this cheap debt is not available. So that's also doing worse than before. And what do they need today? They need the liquidation of uneconomical projects which were started out of the cheap credit policy. Now these are not working, and they needs to be shut down and the liquidation should happen so that this investment can be done somewhere else. The same situation is there with India. In India also, in the issue of NPAs and the companies which are not able to repay the loans, so their liquidation is required here. So in China also the situation is like this, but in a different format. Now it's not clear whether China is willing to bite the bullet and stop feeding its economy with cheap credit. So it's not sure till now that China would apply all these measures that we discussed in the last 5 minutes. It's not sure. So these all are kind of a confusing situations, and this situation is hanging by now. So none of this will be good for the long-term health of Chinese or the global economy, because China is having a great share in the world trade. Now the next article is regarding a very crucial issue of the credibility of the Supreme Court and its working and the collegium system that is under a great suspicion today. Reciprocity means I give you something and you give me something back. That is reciprocity, and that works well with the human civilization and our society also. But in Supreme Court, in Judiciary, if reciprocity is maintained, then it's a great concern for the democracy, because Supreme Court or the Judiciary is the ultimate help for the poor, for the weaker sections. We are looking at this as a greatest hope that justice would be delivered there. If their reciprocity is there, and reciprocity is with the political lobbies, then it becomes a great problem. It started way back in 1970s, where Mr. Ray was made a CJI, and after that Mr. Beg was made CJI in 1977. It was in 1973. In both these times, they favored government and they gave decisions according to government's needs. That was a big problem. And you see, at that time, both these people, they were appointed superseding their seniors. Here the Mr. H.S. Khanna was superseded when Mr. Beg was made CJI. So H.S. Khanna also objected to this trend. That trend which is rising. At that time in 70s, he said that this trend is rising and tilt is going towards the government, where judiciary's decisions, they are complying the government's wishes. That's a problem. That was the Indira Gandhi's government. At that time, the committed judiciary, this concept came. Committed judiciary means the judiciary is working according to the will of government. That was the big problem. Here today, the situation is, you see, this collegium decision came when Mr. Khanna from the Delhi High Court and Mr. Maheshwari, he was elevated to Supreme Court from Karnataka High Court. So their names are not problem, and their merit is also not objectionable. But what objectionable is the pattern of events when on 12th of December they decided two different names, Mr. Menon and Mr. Nandaraj, I think. So their name were withdrawn without any reason, as we discussed yesterday. And new names of these two people, Mr. Khanna and Mr. Maheshwari, their name appeared, and collegium did some suspicious activity there, and they did not clarify that what was the reason that they dropped their names and they flaunted their names. That was the problem. So here the independence, impartiality and fearlessness of judges, these are talked about. A writer is saying that these are not private rights of judges. These are citizens' rights. Okay, and judges are there to uphold these rights. Ultimately, judicial legitimacy, power rests on people's confidence in the courts. And if this confidence is not there, then certainly it will be a chaos in the democracy. Because everything runs on this confidence on the judiciary, that justice would be there. If anything happens to us, if anything wants to take our life, anything wants to create a disturbance in our life, then judiciary is there certainly. And that will listen to us, and the justice would be delivered. So that's the main hope. If this hope, if this confidence is waned, then nothing left in the democracy, and people will be in ultimate peril. That's the problem. Now collegium revisiting the decision of these two judges, that became a problem, and the manner in which it was carried, that was the greater concern. You see, unnecessary doubts about the credibility of the highest court is rising, and it is seriously undermining the independence of the judges who are honest. Judicial review, you see, it's the greatest component where Supreme Court is the ultimate guarantor and the protector of the Constitution of India. Okay, where it evaluate all the laws that are these laws in consonance with the constitutional values, and are these laws safeguarding the fundamental rights, or they are in contradiction to the fundamental rights. So it is the judicial review that Supreme Court does. If Supreme Court judges, they are involved in some kind of reciprocity, or if the collegium is involved in some kind of reciprocity, then it is going to be a greatest problem for our democracy and the separation of the judiciary. That's the issue. Now see, we take here the KM Joseph case. When KM Joseph, he was the same person who quashed the president's rule in Uttarakhand, which was imposed by BJP, and that was unconstitutional, and he quashed this decision. Now Mr. KM Joseph's recommendation, his name was with the government at that time to raise his name to the as a Supreme Court judge, but after this incident they delayed his name and they sent his name back to the selection committee. Okay, sorry, the search committee. So that was the problem. And you see, in the case of this Mr. Khanna and Mr. Maheshwari, recently when they were held as Supreme Court judges, they were appointed as judges. In this particular issue, there was no revisiting, and they never sent their names back, and instantly they approved their names as Supreme Court judges. So that's different, and that shows that something is going on, and this reciprocity factor is certainly there. Now, from the past, we can learn a lot. Since 70s, this thing is happening, when superseding is going on, where senior members are not appointed as CJI, and when this race is going on to become the CJI, then this reciprocity issue is certainly there, when judges are involved in giving decisions according to the government. And that is seen in the case of Banks nationalization case and in the case of Indira Gandhi election case, where both decisions came in the favor of government. Okay, Mr. Ray gave this decision in the Banks case, and Mr. Beg gave this decision in the Indira Gandhi's election case, where he said that the basic structure allows for the democracy, not for the fair election. That was the biggest controversy here. And you see, in the NJEC case, here also, when Justice, what was the name? Kehar. Justice Kehar quashed this particular law of NJAC, where he said that there would be an issue of reciprocity because political establishment would interfere in judiciary's working, and there would be no autonomy left, and there would be no separation of the judiciary. Okay, so it would be a trouble. That's why it's unconstitutional. It is against the separation of the judiciary. That is the basic feature of the constitution, and we won't be able to uphold the basic features of the constitution at that time, because there can be influence from the political establishment. So we are questioning this idea. So at that time, this reciprocity was kept at length. Okay, that was not considered. Now you see, in the country like US also, where judges are appointed by the president and are known to be leaning towards the Democrats or Republicans, which are the parties there, because you see, they thank president for the appointment, and when president send their names to Senate, so they are thankful to the Senate members also. So always the influence is there on the judges of president and of the Senate members. So that's the problem even in the USA. But in India, it's a better system where collegium decides about the issue and no political interference is there. But now this collegium system is under great suspicion and under great scrutiny, that it is deciding according to the political will. That's the problem here. Now see, is it possible to completely insulate judges from government's influence? That's a question that remains. You see, George Orwell said, government is everywhere and judges are fellow human beings and they get influenced by it. But the problem is, we call Supreme Court judges as lords, and lords are supposed to be lords. These are not normal human beings. There is a difference between normal human being and the Supreme Court judges. Normal human being, they get influenced by the government's power, but Supreme Court judges should not get influenced by the power. Otherwise, there would be a chaos. Okay, so that's the system. And when this political establishment it is weak, if any time it is weak, then only Supreme Court asserts its power and judiciary asserts its power. And this collegium system, this came in 1990s when a lot of disturbance, a lot of instability was going on with the political establishment. So that's why the collegium system could come at that time. Otherwise, if political establishment would have been strong like today, then they would not have allowed this collegium system to be upheld there. So at that time only collegium system could get established after the judges cases. Now the issue of power and influence. You see, Indira Gandhi was influential because she was powerful, and Mr. Modi is also very much powerful, not only powerful but hugely influential. And the marketing strategies and all, and these social medias and all, they have made this influence multiple times. Okay, so that's a reality today, and that was the reality at the Indira Gandhi's time. In both the cases there are some similarities, and at that time committed judiciary notion came. Committed judiciary, as I told you. Okay, so individuals are obligated to reciprocate favors received. Normal people in the human societies, they are obligated to reciprocate favor received. If they get some favor, then they get something and they paid back in a way to the person who is giving that person something. Okay, so it's a reciprocity, but this norm of reciprocity should not be there in the judiciary. That's a issue. In American, judges who felt obliged to the president for nominating them, and senators who helped them in the confirmation process, these American judges can never be impartial, because that is the system like this. But in India there is a better system, fortunately, but unfortunately the situation is changing. That's the issue. Okay, and even Ambedkar wanted to insulate the judiciary from political pressures. He only said that the judiciary should be separate, otherwise political influence would be there, because he knew what kind of system prevails in India. Okay, now Mr. Chagla, who was the CJI of Bombay High Court, and he became a minister in Indira Gandhi's cabinet, he said that when these judges are in line where one of them is going to be the CJI, so when this race is going on and this line is created, certainly some judges would be compromising with the political establishment to get some favor to be nominated as CJI. Okay, so this thing you cannot stop. So that's the problem. And at that time, each eyed the other with suspicion. When he was judge, at that time he also observed the situation that each eyed the other with the suspicion and tried to outdo him in proclaiming his loyalty to the government. This thing he saw, and that's the reality. And Mr. H.R. Khanna, who was superseded in 1977 when Mr. Beg was appointed as CJI, at that time Khanna observed, and he said that in his book Neither Roses Nor Thorns, he said that approach of the court is changing and tilt in favor of upholding the orders of the government. That's the reality today. This approach is going towards from being neutral towards being biased towards governments, and that's a cause of concern. And now the biggest threat, writer is saying the biggest threat is, you see, there was a issue of basic feature of the constitution, and it was upheld in 1973 in the Keshwanand Bharti case. Okay, at that time it was decided that some things are there in the constitution that cannot be changed even by constitutional amendment. You cannot change the factor of democracy, you cannot change fundamental rights, you cannot change that someday in the future there would be no elections. So you cannot change the election process, and you cannot change the secular character of India. So these are the basic features of the constitution. If these are changed, then democracy cannot survive. That was the reason. But you see, the writer is saying that it does not look too remote in the near future. Means it can be a reality in near future that 15 judge bench, that's a very large bench, overturning Keshwanand Bharti case, and this basic features will be changed. Anything can happen. You see, there are possibilities. There are possibilities that some government would come in the future and they would say that there will be no election in the future. Okay, and we will remain in the power. And that's the constitution of India from today. They can say this because they will have majority in the parliament, and they will say that we are the now a permanent government, we will not change, and it is in the constitution and you have to follow the law. They may change this because if 15 judge bench, that's a larger bench, that changes this idea of basic feature, then certainly these things are possible in the future. So here the writer is pointing towards a bigger threat. If this situation continues, if this reciprocity continues, if this political inclination and the pressure continues, then this day is not so far. That's the biggest issue. So that's why judges should be lords. They should not behave like normal people. That's the need of the hour. Next article. Some call it democracy on the charge sheet against JNU students. You see the issue of filing a charge sheet and imposing a sedition law on Mr. Kanhaiya Kumar and Umar Khalid and other people. And when the charge is not there upon them that they hailed any kind of slogan that India should be divided and Bharat Tere Tukde Honge, something like that. The charge is not on these people that they said something. The people who said something, the people who raised these slogans, they are absconding. They are not found till date. Okay. But sedition charges are being brought on these people. So writer is saying that it's a great cause of concern, because in universities you cannot hail them as teaching shops. Okay, these are not teaching shops. This is the greatest platform where all kinds of opinions, all kinds of scholars, all kinds of ideas are being discussed on peaceful platforms. There are seminars, there are debates, there they discuss and innovative ideas and creative solutions are appearing in the university stage. So if you want to scuttle the university, if you want to put a charge of sedition on the university students, then certainly our democracy will be in peril. That's the idea of this article. And you see Lord Macaulay in the British colonial period, he introduced the sedition law, and we had discussed about this, that at that time they had a fear that they will be exposed if any kind of activities like sloganeering and the publishing of some books or novels or pamphlets against us, or which are exposing our true character, then our days will be numbered in India. So at that time we will have to leave India. So we have to stop these activities, and they started this sedition law. So that was the draconian law, and that was in the favor of Britishers. But why this is being continued today, and why this is being inflicted on the issue where it was not proved and these people were directly not involved with the sloganeering. And even the writer is saying that young bloods are excited sometimes. Okay, and if somebody has hailed these kind of stupid slogans and nonsense slogans which are nothing going to change, okay, these kind of slogans should be ignored if they are not doing a big harm to the nation directly, because this protest was peaceful and these people were not halting the city, and they were there in the campus only, and they were not demanding the resignation of the governments. They were raising slogans like we need freedom from these casteism and unegalitarian society and the division in the society and this reservation issue and this this particular regionalism and all these issues. Okay, and they were raising concerns regarding the issues of Kashmir. So that was under their constitutional rights, but that was not under their rights that they say that Bharat Tere Tukde Honge. But the real issue is that when this Bharat Tere Tukde Honge slogan was appeared in the media and it was spread like a fire in the stage of a country of India, so at that time people became hyper emotional and nobody saw this logic that who said what and where are those people who raised these slogans. Nobody caught these people, and these people who were the organizers of the event, they are charged with the sedition law. So this logic should be there. This logic should not be disappeared from the scene. But you see, people are totally in the next level thinking, where they are totally want to attack these people, that how they dared say something about India. So in the whole debate, the emotions, they ruled the scene, they dominated the scene, and the logic that escaped by the back window. That was the issue here. Now see, one parallel has been created here. In 1968 in France, there was huge protests by the university students against hidebound, patriarchal and class governed society and the structures, and that was so great a protest, so huge the protest, that people came on the streets and all, and the different sections in the society and the students across the country, they supported this idea, and they were sloganeering against the involvement of Western governments in the Vietnam War, against sexual unfreedom and realization of liberty. So all these things, these were the basic ideas of French Revolution 200 years back in 1789, and they were raising all these issues again. Okay, so at that time it was a fight against these negativities, and these all negativities were inflicted by the government of that time in 1968. Okay, so government did not pay much heed at that in the starting phase, but later they attacked these students and they arrested all of them. But what happened after that? They said that we are not opposing you, we are opposing your ways, we are opposing your structures that you are inflicting on us. So if you are arresting us, you are committing a bigger crime here, and that's why people threw the government out in the next election. Next election was won by the party, but after a referendum he had to resign. So that happened in France. And you see, the ideals of French Revolution like fraternity and all, we have also taken in our preamble. Okay, so the idea was very noble of the French Revolution, and this thing also happened. And now after 50 years of after 1968, today's 2019, after 50 years, France is celebrating this revolution as a very important event and a fight against these negativities, and they are celebrating this issue. Now see, at that they were motivated by a particular slogan that politics is the art of the impossible. Means we are fighting for the impossible. The egalitarian society, the equal society is a dream, and that's impossible today, so we are fighting for that. So that actually gave them a boost, and they were against the establishment at that time. So France did not forgive him for going to war against his own students, the ruler, the president they are talking about. So they did not forgive him, and he had to resign. And you see, now it is remembered, and at that time some famous quotes were there. You see, the English poet William Wordsworth, he said, bliss was it in that dawn to be alive, but to be young was very a heaven. O times when reason seemed the most to assert her rights. That means it was a heavenly feeling when being a young person and being involved in those energetic protests and those fights of freedom, it was a heaven. That means it's a spirit of youth, and that should not that should never die down. Okay, the young, if the young do not struggle for the emancipation, who will rise against odds? Because these are energetic people, this is the age group where they change the world. And you see, that's why we hailed Bhagat Singh always, and more than any other leader in the freedom struggle, because he was youth, full of energy. That's inspiring. Why do we follow Vivekananda? Because he was youth, he was full of energy, and he is inspiring us because he showed the path with a positive direction to this energy. So that was the great idea, and that's the spirit of universities where youth is there, and all kinds of discussions are energetic and positive. But if you impose a monopoly, a monoculture on the universities, then certainly it becomes a problem. And here the issue, when you are imposing sedition laws against your students, then that becomes a problem. You see, if this law is passed, then these people will have to remain behind bars for rest of their lives. The life imprisonment would be given to them, and who knows, maybe out of public pressure, political pressure, they may be hanged, that they have said something against our country. But you see, it is about the definition of the being anti-national. You see, if Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi, they are absconding with thousands of crores of rupees, and because of that they are not able to waive the loans of farmers, which are very small amount. Okay, so many farmers are dying, so that connection is there with the death of these farmers and the people who are absconding with the thousands of crores of rupees. So these people are also anti-national. And the ministers who create divisions in the society and who spread the hate in the society, these are the bigger anti-nationals. But we are not focusing on those people. And you see here the issue was not so big, and these are young and energetic people, and sometimes they are out of their minds, and sometimes in the emotion they say something. But it's not like that you impose these draconian law and you send them behind the bars for the rest of their lives. That's a problematic thing, although it's totally wrong to say something like that, and the action should be taken against those people. But those people who actually said something like that, those are absconding, and these people are charged with the sedition law. That's a great bizarre thing. Okay, will our great country and ancient civilization collapse because of some idiotic slogans? That cannot be said. That because of these idiotic slogans, can our civilization, can it collapse? We are capable to take a battle against China, and we can ruthlessly demolish Pakistan's army today. We have that much capability, and we always hail those things, and we are totally capable of tackling all these issues which are against our state. But these slogans, what are these? What is their power? And somebody is saying these and they are absconding, then it's of no use. What impact it will bring to our state? So it is nothing against those big odds when we are fighting battles on our borders. So it's nothing in comparison to that. So why we are being so sensitive about these issues? Why we are being so in a way provoked about these issues, and why we are provoking India's masses against that? You see, when the issue of Bharat Mata comes, when the issue of Desh Bhakti comes, then people are totally provoked, and they apply all their emotional force, and they don't apply their minds, and they don't think it through. If peacefully this thing is discussed, then many other truths will come out. But you see, the writer is saying that we are out of our minds, and because it's an emotional upsurge, and this issue is made emotional with the way of media and all. So that is the issue. So these slogans are not going to do a great harm to our nation, and not that much harm that you impose sedition law to the organizers of the event. So that's the issue. Now it has become too much political, and many opinions would be different. Even some of you people would not agree with these kind of writings and this kind of explanation from my side. But you see, we should hear both kinds of arguments, and judge decides about that in court. And here you are going to be the judge. You will decide about hearing both kinds of arguments. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe writer is wrong, maybe some other person is wrong, totally wrong. Okay, but you have to listen and you have to understand the arguments, both arguments, and it's up to your mind that how do you evaluate that condition. We cannot be in haste in deciding about somebody's life that we are imposing sedition law. So this creates a lot of pressure. The public creates a lot of pressure. Okay, so that's the issue. And public universities, as I told you, it's not a teaching shop. It's a very innovative platform, and we should respect that premise. We should respect that freedom, that autonomy of the universities. These are the main drivers of the democracy, economy, and all fields of the nation, because researchers are here, the totally free environment is there. And you see, universities are the only place in India which can uphold the equality. Otherwise in the society, what do you see? Yesterday we saw a poor kid of 8 years old who was taking her mother's dead body, and he was denied any kind of help because he was a Dalit. You see, these are the realities of our India. These are the realities of our society. So universities, they are the places which they can undo all these mistakes of our society, and they can deal with these situations. They can change the society. You see, intercaste marriages and all, these are the basics of their free and progressive ideas, their thinking and all. And these are the main standards of the universities, and they should remain there, and these are the ultimate solutions. So we should not suppress universities, and we should not deal with university students like this. We have a Vivekananda statue there. You see, sedition law was also imposed on Mr. the Bal Gangadhar Tilak also, Lokmanya Tilak also. Was he a terrorist? No, no way. He was the creator of India. So that is the thing that we should think it through, that what kind of impact somebody's sloganeering will be bringing to us. That's the thing. So this is all about this article. These things are repetitive things. Many times we hear about them, and people in the power should recognize the importance of political debate in civil society. The crushing and the suppression should not be the norm. Otherwise, they are doing a greater harm to the democracy. They are doing greater harm to the nation if they are crushing the peaceful debates and political debates in our country. That's the problem. Okay, some hotheads shout objectionable slogans. Ignore them as long as they do not lead to any kind of big harm. That's the issue. And this political impulse, which the writer is paralleling with the Francis issue, we should learn positive things from the world, and our past also shows us the path, and call for overthrow of these caste discriminations, inequalities, patriarchy, and all the troubles of India. They should be discussed, and we should deal with them with the harsh laws. Not we should deal with the students with the harsh laws like sedition laws and all. Okay, we should work against these odds with the force, not with the students. Okay. So now the news today: India inks agreement for uranium with Uzbekistan. You see, Uzbekistan's president is the one of the chief guests in the vibrant Gujarat summit. I discussed this issue in the PIB analysis video yesterday, and Modi ji also thanked him for the India Central Asia summit, which happened in the city was Samarkand. Okay, so Samarkand is the city in Uzbekistan. So there this happened, India Central Asia dialogue. So this may appear in the prelims examination this year, and he was the chief guest in the vibrant Gujarat summit. So a lot of things happened. Now the next, Rajasthan state bird, Great Indian Bustard, which is only left with the number of 50. Only 50 birds are left. This is one of the heaviest bird that can fly, and almost 2 years it has been when government proposed setting up captive breeding centers for that, but it is not possible till now, and the conditions are totally against this bird, and it is dying every day. The numbers are becoming lesser, and 50 in Jaisalmer districts are only left, and this 50 number which is there in India is 95% of the total bird's population. Okay, so it's a problematic thing. It's a state bird and very unique bird which is under the immense threat. So we should do something for that. And now it is a great achievement for India. On Australia's land, we have won all the formats: T20 test series, one day series. India has become the first team to win a bilateral series in all formats in Australia. So that's a great achievement, and Dhoni is ruling here. MCQ, try them. These are important ones. And this area in this map, find these Marshall Islands and Kaku Island, all are controversial issues in the world scenario, and this is the city. You find them where these are. Look for the boundaries, look for the passages, straits, and look for the latitudes, longitudes, and you will learn a lot of additional things. Okay, and this mains practice question. Thanks a lot, keep watching, and if I have said something as an overtone, so please forgive me for that, but take these things in an analytical way, in a logical way. That's my request to you. Thanks, and you can follow here. That's my Facebook profile, and Facebook group is also there where I upload these PDFs daily. Thanks a lot. Keep watching. It was Amit Sani.